You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Oh yeah, baby, lovely.
Good morning, it's September the 12th, and welcome to Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News here at paceradio.net. Good day, Glenn.
How are you, Al?
Not doing too bad, and yourself?
Pretty good. Looks like a paradise where you are.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, it's just the deck out here is covered in trees and foliage, and it's a nice spot to come out and do the news and read the news and smoke a doobie while you're at it.
Yep. Sounds like a good place to me. Looks like a good place.
It is. Exactly. All right. Anything new and exciting before we get into the news?
Not yet. Not today.
All righty. Here we go. We get started with the first story of the day. The headline says from Marijuana Moment, marijuana companies file opening appellate brief in case challenging federal prohibition.
Attorneys representing major cannabis companies in a lawsuit against the U.S. government filed their opening brief in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the First Circuit on Tuesday, part of an ambitious effort to block the enforcement of federal cannabis prohibition against their state legal activities. And lawyers argue in the filing that Congress has in recent decades dropped any assumption that federal control of state-regulated cannabis is necessary, essentially shirking the federal authority confirmed by a 2005 Supreme Court opinion, Gonzalez versus Reich, that they conclude means the Controlled Substances Act ban as applied to state-regulated cannabis cannot be upheld today.
It goes on to say that in the nearly 20 years since Congress has enacted legislation demonstrating that it no longer seeks to control comprehensively, let alone ban all marijuana commerce. The brief contends asserting lawmakers have abandoned their golden goal of eradicating marijuana from interstate commerce. Goes on to say Congress has abandoned its goal of eradicating marijuana has in fact especially exempted it from federal enforcement in certain circumstances, it says, pointing to policies embodied in the congressional budget rider that prevents federal funds from being used to interfere with state legal medical marijuana and lawmakers' decisions to allow marijuana legislation to proceed in the District of Columbia.
And Congress has also dropped any assumption that federal control of state-regulated cannabis is necessary to prevent a gaping hole in the CSA, the brief adds, yet the federal prohibition on state-regulated cannabis nonetheless continues. The latest filing is the next step in a courtroom battle began last October when plaintiffs represented by the prestigious law firm Boies Schiller Flexner LLP claim that perpetuating federal prohibition in state markets is unconstitutional. Plaintiffs include multi-state cannabis operator Verano Holdings Corp. And the Massachusetts-based cannabis business Canna Provisions and Wiseacre Farm, along with the Trevit CEO Galassi Sellers.
Litigator David Boies, whose list of prior clients includes the Justice Department, former Vice President Al Gore, and plaintiffs in the case that led to the invalidation of California's ban on same-sex marriage, is leading the suit. This summer, a district judge dismissed the challenge, ruling that while there were persuasive reasons for re-examination of the current scheduling of cannabis and that the plaintiffs had standing to bring the suit, the court's hands were effectively tied by the right decision upholding the government's authority to regulate substances even within state borders.
The dismissal didn't come as a particular surprise to attorneys for the cannabis companies, who had generally indicated that they expected the case to move up to higher courts, including eventually the Supreme Court. Days after the district court's ruling, attorneys filed notice of their appeal. At the time, Josh Schiller, who's a lawyer on the case, called the district court decision thoughtful and said that on appeal, we will continue to press our case that the federal government lacks any rational basis for banning state-regulated cannabis.
On Tuesday, Schiller told Marijuana Moment that the company's challenge against the federal government's unconstitutional ban on cannabis is moving quickly to the next stage. Today, we filed a brief with the First Circuit Court of Appeals explaining that Congress lacks authority to continue criminalizing the medical and adult use of cannabis, and that is today relied on by people in 38 states across the country. We and other clients are continuing to push forward in this litigation to provide relief for this important industry.
And lawyers for the government have until October 10th to file a response brief in the case, which Schiller noted is before a scheduled December 2nd hearing on the Biden administration's cannabis rescheduling proposal. In addition to Congress's more permissive recent stance towards state-level cannabis legalization in recent years, the new appellate filing argues that the district court ruling ignored the long historical record of cannabis cultivation and use in our nation's history, legal tradition, and practices.
The filing continues to say, since before the founding, Americans have cultivated, traded in, and made use of marijuana. These centuries-old legal traditions are now being continued in the cannabis programs in 38 different states, which recognize the ongoing value of cannabis commerce. Together, both the historical record and these current practices demonstrate the fundamental nature of the right to cultivate, possess, and market marijuana.
Central to the case is the degree to which in-state cannabis activity affects interstate commerce. Lawyers for the government, for example, have argued that cannabis legalization attracts out-of-state tourists. So what? The Department of Justice argued in a filing in April that it is rational to conclude that the regulated cannabis industry in Massachusetts fuels a different kind of cannabis-related interstate commerce, cannabis tourism. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, nothing wrong with tourism. Really, exactly.
It's nice to have people come spend money in your state, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I would think so, yeah. Now, the DOJ argued in a filing in April that it is rational to conclude that the regulated marijuana industry in Massachusetts fuels a different kind of marijuana-related industry. Okay, yeah, you just read that. As the Supreme Court held decades ago, Congress has the authority to regulate businesses that cater to tourists from out of state, even if the business's transactions occur wholly in-state, the DOJ said in the brief. Plaintiffs, meanwhile, contended the Constitution's Commerce Clause should preclude DOJ from interfering in state legal activity because it is regulated within the state's borders.
Even while dismissing the case, the district court ruled that plaintiffs indeed have standings to bring the lawsuit. Plaintiffs have argued that they variously engage in the cultivation, manufacture, distribution, and possession of cannabis wholly within Massachusetts, and the CSA makes such activity a federal crime, the decision says. In the absence of any dispute regarding redressability, the court finds plaintiffs have demonstrated that they have standing under Article 3 to challenge the portions of the CSA applicable to intrastate activities related to cannabis.
Court also finds plaintiffs have shown that there is a causal connection between their economic injuries and the CSA. When credited, plaintiffs' detailed allegations about their financial injuries meet that burden, though individual decisions by specific third parties are the final link in the causal chain. The economic injury actually flows from the multitude of similar decisions made by many third parties, all responding to the CSA, the judge says. Nevertheless, the district court decided with the government in its motion to dismiss based on a failure to state a claim for relief.
Given the scale of plaintiff's operation, the court cannot find Congress lacks a rational basis for concluding the plaintiff's activities substantially affect interstate commerce, without ignoring the Supreme Court's broadly worded holding in Gonzalez versus Reich. The court said it will now be up to the First Circuit to decide whether to uphold the lower court's ruling or confront more directly whether broad federal cannabis prohibition is constitutional.
There you go.
Interesting.
Yes, yeah,
come at it.
Exactly, and that's what it's going to take. It's going to take more than just one, attack on prohibition. It's going to have to come. Just like I think of it like an octopus. Prohibition is the body of the octopus, and all the tentacles are all the way that cannabis has to attack the prohibition in order for it to go away.
It is changing in our lifetimes. I never thought we'd see this much change.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, here we go. It doesn't end there. Here we go in the next story. This one here comes from the Business of Cannabis, and the headline on it says, Biopharma Company sues DEA for unjustified delays in approving cannabis research.
Probably should have done this years ago. A biopharmaceutical company is suing the Drug Enforcement Administration over what it called unjustified delays to its application to launch clinical trials into cannabis treatments for multiple sclerosis and Huntington's disease. Well, they're not important, though, are they? MMJ, Big Pharma Cultivation, has filed a lawsuit against the DEA, its administrator, Ann Milgram, and the Attorney General for allegedly violating the Controlled Substances Act and the Medical Cannabis and Cannabinoid Research Expansion Act.
In its lawsuit filed on September the 10th, MMJ Biopharma says the prolonged inaction by the DEA caused significant financial harm to the company and unduly delayed research that could alleviate patient suffering. MMJ says that despite meeting all the regulatory requirements to begin research, including submitting 2 investigational new drug applications with the FDA, the DEA failed to process its applications in a timely manner.
Of course, going beyond its own financial losses, the case also brings the use of DEA's administrative law judges who handle disputes into question. The company, which is being represented by attorney Megan Sheehan and Associates, claim that the use of all J's undermines their right to a fair trial, referring to the process as a kangaroo court.
Furthermore, in a notable reference to the ongoing debate surrounding the DEA's role in U.S. cannabis rescheduling, the suit accuses Milgram of personal bias against cannabis research, citing its own case as evidence. In response to the accusations, the DEA and the Department of Justice have stated that as the DEA is yet to come to a decision on MMJ's application, the case is not yet ready for judicial review.
And the regulator also argues that MMJ has failed to demonstrate that their registration would serve the public interest. What? A key requirement is obtaining approval for cannabis research, though MMJ contends that it is certainly in the interest of those suffering with the conditions it is researching. Of course it's to their interest.
Yeah.
What the hell? They failed to demonstrate that they would have served any public interest. Essentially, they're asking to research to see if it does have public interest.
Yeah. Well, you know how things go.
Yeah, big round in a circle. Back to the
beginning again. Well, it's good to see that those are 2 examples of going at cannabis prohibition in other ways.
Yeah, they're trying, and I like it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, now recently we've had some reports from talking about cannabis and driving, especially the big situation that happened out in Saskatchewan, out west. Here's a report that came out recently. This is our next one here. It comes from Canatech Today, and the headline says their analysis: the THC blood concentrations are not correlated with impairment. This is what you and I have been talking about.
Yeah, and we've been stressing this for a long time now, that the what they charge you with being driving under the influence has no bearing on you actually using cannabis in the last few days. So anyway, we're going to read the story and we're going to find out what they say here.
That's right.
How much THC in a person's system is too much when it comes to safely operating a motor vehicle? Due to the complexities of human biology, that question is far more difficult to answer than many policymakers would lead the public to believe. An infrequent user can consume very little cannabis and be significantly impaired, and a frequent consumer can refrain from consumption for multiple days and yet still have a considerable amount of metabolized THC in their system. Not multiple days, multiple weeks.
Yeah.
There is no one size fits all THC threshold that automatically equates to impairment. And I always go back to my own experience here. I had not used in over a month, right?
Yeah.
So, and I still tested positive.
Yeah, exactly. Now, that fact is demonstrated in a recent analysis conducted by researchers in Norway, which found that THC blood concentrations are not correlated with behavior impairment, and they published this data in the Forensic Science International. It says that Norwegian researchers assessed the relationship between drug concentrations and impaired psychomotor performance in a cohort of over 15,000 individuals suspected of drug driving and 3,684 drug-free controls. Driving performance was assessed by participants' performance on a clinical test of impairment.
And consistent with prior literature, the correlation between drug concentration was high for ethanol, but low for THC. Specifically, authors determined for THC, median drug concentrations changed little between drivers assessed as not impaired and impaired. Wow.
Yeah. They concluded the lack of a close relationship between drug concentration of THC and the degree of impairment at the individual level is in accordance with several observations from experimental studies. It says where applicants engaged in the controlled intake of cannabis. The author's findings are consistent with those of numerous studies reporting that neither the detection of THC nor its metabolites in blood or other bodily fluids is predictive of impaired driving performance. As a result, NORML has long opposed the impositions of per se THC limits for motorists and has alternately called for the expanded use of mobile performance technology like DRUD. So there you go.
Yeah, I'd like to know exactly what DRUD is here.
Yeah, so would I.
I'm assuming that's like a roadside sobriety kind of thing.
DRUD is it's fit for community cognitive impaired testing. It says it applies neuroscience to assess levels user of cognitive and motor impairment. That's what it. I'll just bring it up briefly on the screen here, and you'll see it. There you go.
Very interesting.
Yeah, DRUD.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, I ask a question and you have the answer right away.
I have the answer, eh? Yeah, thanks for those built-in leaks there, article. Make sure I just don't get that as the next story. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so this is our last story before we go to break. And this one here, it's I'm going to say it's pretty close to home for you, is it not?
It is. It's about 2.5, 3 hours from me.
All right, because according to CTV News, officers seized 432 kilograms of dried cannabis valued at $1.4 million in Moncton.
Yeah, that might sound a little bit to Ontario people, but for here, that's a big amount for here. New Brunswick Department of Justice and Public Safety officers recently seized more than 432 kilograms of dried cannabis in Moncton in what they believe is the largest such seizure in Atlantic Canada. According to a news release from the New Brunswick government, peace officers executed a search warrant at a Moncton residence on August 30th. They arrested a 45-year-old woman from Scarborough, Ontario, and a 53-year-old man from Markham, Ontario, and a 68-year-old man from Scarborough, Ontario, at the scene. And I'm sure these are really, really bad people, these people.
They seized 432 kilograms of cannabis, $143,000 in cash, 8,000 pre-rolled joints, 1,650 edible products, 1 kilogram of THC crystals, 925 electronic vape products, 540 grams of hashish, and 241 grams of cannabis derivatives.
And I can see them getting in big trouble for these packaged.
I've had some of those. I've had some of those products.
I have these Skittles right here, the red Skittles. I have them right now. But I can see this causing the most problems. You know, because they look so close to the actual products, right?
Yeah.
This one actually says Skittles on it, or Fritos, you know, so
Fritos, yeah,
they're going to be in trouble for those ones.
Yeah. All right, go ahead.
Officers believe the products were set to go to more than 30 unlicensed dispensaries in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Quebec. This seizure will disrupt the distribution network of dozens of unlicensed cannabis dispensaries, not only in New Brunswick, but throughout Canada, said Public Safety Minister Chris Austin in the release. This is crucial as illegal cannabis contributes to and supports organized crime. And I'm going to say most of this stuff is probably going to reserves. It's not organized crime. It's people on the reserves.
I wouldn't doubt that as well as other places, events and things. I've seen some of those products that they say the release says all 3 arrested will face charges under the section 354 of the Criminal Code, which is possession of property obtained by crime, and under the Federal Cannabis Act. They go to court on November the 25th. So who knows? We may have an update with that if we happen to catch it on the news as it goes by. So
there's some of these products here that I actually buy on the reserve. So it's
I've bought some of those. Yeah, exactly. So I know
some of the concentrates in the back.
You know, I've gone to cannabis events, you know, markets and stuff like that, and I've seen those products there. So, all right, break time. Time to medicate. We'll be right back after our session. You're watching the Pace Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News here at PaceRadio.net.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at PaceRadio.net.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420. Are you looking for non-stop, continuous cannabis and psychedelic programming? If you are, then turn your browsers to 420radio.ca or paceradio.net, where you will find the 420 Pace re-rolled Saturday. Everything gets started at 8 a.m. Eastern Saturday morning.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Are you looking to get your medical cannabis grow license? Limestone City Hydroponics can help patients through the process of obtaining their license to grow medical cannabis. What's that? You don't have a doctor. If you meet the medical criteria, Limestone City Hydroponics has a nurse practitioner who can assess and provide medical cannabis prescriptions. What are you waiting for? Contact Limestone City Hydroponics at limestonecityhydroponics.ca or call them at 613-548-0420.
Pace Radio is the people advocating cannabis education radio network.
Legacy 420 have an awesome array of cannabis-infused beverages, from pop to Nature's Nectar's teas, all in amazing flavors. What a selection! We even have a delicious mango-infused juice, and let me tell you, it's delicious.
Everything is infused in-house, so we buy our syrup from, the same place where everybody else buys their syrup for their pop, and the infusion is done in the lab. It's all canned here, labeled here, produced 100% on Tyndonega.
We have 2 lines of drinks. One's called our Nature's Nectar. That was our original line that we came out with. And then we also have a line under the Red E brand. We have them in 10 milligrams, 30 milligram, and 60 milligram cans.
What a great selection for a get-together with friends or after a long day. Remember, if you want to wet your whistle with on-site lab-tested products, come see your trusted partner. Legacy 420 out on your road.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Hey, we're back from our medication session. We got, 4 more stories there. Glenn, we're going to go to the Philippines on stuff as well. We're going to go to Maine.
Oh, I was hoping you were actually taking me to the Philippines.
Oh, sorry, buddy. Sorry. Not today. Maybe next winter we'll go for the winter.
Sounds good to me. I'm there.
They have warm winters there?
Well, it's the Philippines. I guess it's warm.
Yeah. All righty. Let's go to a spot where it's not warm in the winter, and that is Maine. Because in Maine, according to Fox 23 Maine, they say that the Maine Office of Cannabis Policy Issues state's first ever health and safety recall.
Okay, the recall has been put in place due to health and safety concerns in cannabis products throughout the state. 8 cannabis stores in Maine have recalled multiple products due to mold and yeast audit testing.
Now, according to Office of Cannabis Policy Director John Hudak, he says it has arisen out of a licensee not following what OCP told them to do and not following the regulations that govern the adult use of cannabis program in Maine. Hudak says that 3 strains of cannabis flower and pre-rolls produced by Cannabis Cured were recalled due to the health risk of inhaling mold.
We identified some irregularities and launched an investigation, and ultimately we found there were products that did make their way to the market shelf despite OCP working to prevent that, Hudak said. And John Lorenz, who's the owner of one of the shops affected by the recall, says thanks to the state's tracking system, he was able to get the contaminated products off the shelves quickly. Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah. He says the product can be traced back from the retailer to the lab, to the production facility, to the grow, to infect the seed or the plant that it came from. Wow. The remaining recalled product was found at Cannabis Cured stores from as far east as Bangor, as far south as Stratton, and all the way to Elliott.
The cannabis was out for sale August 27th to September 9th. The Cannabis Cured Company put out a statement on Wednesday. All the recently recalled products had a certificate of analysis showing that the standards had been met. During a subsequent audit, tests conducted by the state, a portion did not. And Hudak says it's the first time since the adult use cannabis became legal in Maine, there has been a recall.
Yeah. And recalls, just so you know, they can be exchanged or returned. So there you go.
Nice. It's nice that they're able to do that at least, keep it.
Yeah. It's disappointing it gets to market. They're always saying that about legacy market, but
they did catch it. So
they did catch it, which is good, and they were able to track it back, right? So
yeah.
All right, we're heading over to StratCan because over there the headline says new cannabis industry organization seeks to establish better standards for testing.
A new organization that hopes to help establish standards-based information about cannabis products and companies in Canada is hosting its first workshop in Ottawa in September. The Cannabis Standards Alliance of Canada is a newly launched not-for-profit organization seeking to establish enforceable industry standards and provide consumers and industry with evidence-based information about cannabis products.
In the first workshop on September the 20th, the new association will focus on the accuracy of THC values on dried cannabis flower products. The goal of the workshop will be to create standards for sampling practices by producers and analytical labs for testing purposes such as sample selection and preparation. Sample practices. That'll be the thing that the bud tenders get.
Yeah.
Now, CSAC provides the cannabis sector with an alternative to lab shopping THC inflation, creating a level playing field for producers, labs, and dispensaries of all sizes, says Pierre Killeen, the organization's executive director, in the press release. Now, going forward, he says that the Cannabis Standards Alliance of Canada will develop additional enforceable standards, helping the sector capitalize on the many opportunities of both of legal cannabis, both here in Canada and internationally.
Killian has an extensive history in policy and public affairs, and was most recently executive director of the Institute on Cannabis and the VP of Legislative and Regulatory Affairs at the Cannabis Council of Canada. Before that, he was VP of Corporate Communications and Government Relations at Hexco, a Quebec-based cannabis producer. And issues with the accuracy of THC testing have been a hot topic in the cannabis industry in Canada and beyond. Yeah, we've talked about this numerous times.
Yeah.
The Ontario Cannabis Store has even began conducting internal testing on products it carries to ensure THC levels are accurate.
Yeah, exactly. You know, they are a business, the OCS, and they're checking to make sure that what's coming into their business is accurate, which, you know, in the end works out good for them.
And we know that they haven't been too accurate in the past.
Yeah, exactly. Now, in 2023, Health Canada also announced it was launching a data gathering program on cannabis markets in Canada. It will include sampling and testing of both legal and illegal products currently in the market.
Nice.
So there you go. We're testing things. Yeah, they just send a silent shopper, go around, you know, whether it's at an event or you know, on the reserve someplace, somewhere in the country, right? So,
yeah.
Alrighty. On to the next one. This one comes from the Canada Tech Today as well, and it says calls for Senate approval of medical cannabis bill in the Philippines. All right, another medical cannabis location coming to the country, or the world, I should say.
Earlier this year, the Philippines House of Representatives overwhelmingly approved HB 10439, a measure that would legalize certain medicinal cannabis therapeutic products in the Philippines is limited in limited instances. The principal author of HB 10439 is National Unity Party President and Camarines Sur Rep. El Rey Villaforte. Despite the overwhelming approval in the Philippines House of Representatives, the measure appears to have stalled now that it is being considered by the Philippines Senate. Representative Villaforte is urging senators to approve the measure with no further delays.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Villaforte says, according to local reporting, that with the House's third and final approval of HB 10439 in the previous legislative session, what we need now is for our senators to act on their counterpart measure in the hope that we can come up with an enrolled bill for submission to and enactment into law by President Marcos, this third and final session in the 19th Congress. What is being proposed in the Philippines is the legalization of CBD in limited circumstances, which compared to other medical cannabis legalization models found around the world, will still be very restrictive. Representative Villaforte is hopeful that the international spread of reform will tip the scales in the Philippines.
I am more upbeat that the Congress will be able this time around to finally write a law allowing qualified patients with debilitating diseases to use CBD as an alternative treatment for their afflictions, hoping that the UN CND's recognition of non-addictive CBD will convince most of our senators to pass the measure legalizing medical cannabis, Villaforte said. According to a recent study conducted by researchers from Ukraine and France and published by the U.S. National Institute of Health, 57 countries have adopted medical cannabis legalization measures. 57 now.
There you go. Hey, just keeps going.
They're talking about just medicinal, but still, that's 57 countries that have cannabis in them now, which is
correct. And let's just hope that there's a follow-up report that we can get that comes through that lets us know what the final result was. The guy that
if it goes by me, it'll be on here.
Yeah, exactly. All right, our last story of the show. This one is coming to us from the Financial Post. It says cannabis companies cling to beer hemp to stay alive as hope grows for a change in pot's U.S. status.
A long-awaited easing of the U.S. cannabis laws, known as rescheduling, is still at least months away, leaving in place suffocating restrictions on sales due to cannabis's classification alongside drugs including LSD and heroin that's led cannabis companies to find other businesses, including alcohol and hemp, undercutting boasts like Tilray's in its debut 2019 filing that it would capture spending from brewers, distillers, and wineries. Cannabis operators in the U.S. are doing everything they can to generate cash flow and bridge until we get rescheduling, said Scott Fortune, who's Roth MKM managing director. If we don't get rescheduling, we'll see further elimination, consolidation of many retailers, brands, and operators within the industry. He's right.
Yeah. To avoid that fate, firms like Tilray have sought more legitimate businesses like the sale of booze and hemp to stay alive. In the fiscal quarter that ended in May, the company more than doubled alcohol sales from a year earlier to $76.7 million, the most of any product line, and about $5 million more than it brought in from selling cannabis. That marked the first quarter in which the Tilray generated more revenue from booze than cannabis. Optimism that the United States will change its stance on cannabis increased this year when the DEA said it was reviewing the drug's status. President Joe Biden came out in favor of the change in May.
And cannabis stocks rose Monday after former President Donald J. Trump said he supports changing the drug's classification from Schedule 1 substance to Schedule 3. The DEA will hear expert opinions on the proposed classification in December.
There you go.
There's more if you want to go on.
Oh, is there more? Oh,
yep.
Oh, okay. Hang on. I'll bring it back. I'll bring it right back, folks. I thought that was the end of it. That was a big spot underneath there. Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead. Broken up the story. I am close to 100% confident that we will get a positive decision, as I could reasonably be, said Darren Weiss, who's the president of Verano Holdings Corp. And he said that in an interview.
Yeah, for businesses, the change would mean the end of burdensome taxes levied for dealing in restricted substances. Verano estimated additional cash flow of close to $80 million annually from this change alone. It would potentially pave the way to legitimatizing the industry, making it easier to operate like a regular business and improving access to financial services. Still, industry veterans are cautious about placing their faith in the U.S. government, changing its tune on cannabis with the current diversification efforts, an attempt to isolate their businesses, no matter the outcome.
I never want to be sitting here hoping and dependent on government legalization, Tilray Chief Executive Irwin Simon said in an interview. Tilray has gone further than its peers to diversify, snapping up at least 12 U.S.-based breweries just last month. It acquired 4 craft breweries from Molson Coors Beverage Co.
Yeah, the move carries the risk of buying into a market in decline, as each successive generation is less interested in drinking alcohol than the successive generations. Interested in drinking alcohol than the last. About half of 18 to 25-year-olds responded to a national survey said in 2023 they drank in the past month. That's down from 60% in 2014.
Wow. Beer's not going away, said Simon, who who also sees opportunities to leverage the Booze brand's distribution networks. My objective is how do we make beer cool to drink? Some investors are skeptical of that rationale. I don't think the brands carry enough weight to contradict the declining revenue profile of those products, said Emily Praxa, who's the managing partner of Poseidon Investment Management, which invests exclusively in cannabis.
Similarly, Verano doesn't see greener pastures in selling booze. Alcohol is not on our radar, Wise says. It's part of a anathema to what we do in certain respects. Desperate times call for desperate measures, though. Even Green Thumb Industries, the second largest cannabis company by market value, has considered getting into booze. Its chief executive and co-founder, Ben Kovler, openly quoted Boston Beer Co. in a letter posted on X. Green Thumb did not respond to requests for a comment.
And cannabis companies have also taken to selling hemp-based products, something some previously avoided. Canopy Growth Corp, through its subsidiary Wana, announced its first intoxicating hemp product last month to be sold through a newly launched direct-to-consumer marketplace. Hemp, a cousin of cannabis, used to make intoxicating drinks and edibles, can be legally sold and shipped nationwide due to a loophole in the Farm Bill. That legislation is up for review later this year.
Oh, it's up for review. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Joe Hodas, he's the president of Wana, said in an interview that the risk of not doing something is far greater than the risk of getting involved. So there you go. Now, they have sales that shrunk for 3 straight years, and its market value dwindled to $562 million from $25.6 billion.
Wow!
In February 2021. Wow, is that ever?
That's a huge loss. I'm amazed they're still in business.
That's like basically $25 billion is gone out of that 25.6.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
They lost $25 billion.
Yeah.
This has got to be a mistake in numbers, isn't it?
That's in 3 years.
How do you lose $25 billion and still exist in business? Even Donald couldn't lose that kind of money. That's crazy.
Yeah, the drinks category and the formulated product category are going to be probably the largest category in the cannabis space. Curaleaf Holdings Inc. Chief Executive Boris Jordan said in an interview he expected his drinks business, which launched in June, to generate $100 million annually by the end of 2025.
Wow. And along with tax benefits of selling hemp, manufacturing can be centralized and shipped interstate, Jordan said, whereas cannabis requires state-by-state supply chains. A more national presence means more consumer exposure, even in places without regulated cannabis markets. And there hasn't been a great brand equity in cannabis, but now they can start building their brand nationally and still make a profit out of it by selling the hemp-derived THC products, Roth, who's MKM's Fortune said.
I think I lost you.
There's one more paragraph. Battered shares.
Okay, yeah, battered shares coupled with the diversification efforts and expectations of a rule change have Wall Street betting on an industry revival. Analysts have just one sell rating across 68 recommendations for 5 of the largest cannabis companies, while their target prices imply an average return of 96% after the group lost about 69% in the previous 3 years. So there you go.
It's looking up. Those numbers are crazy.
Oh, $25 billion. Like, what the?
That's more than a lot of third world countries' gross domestic product.
Yeah.
That's insanity.
Oh,
I gotta think there's a mistake in the way they printed that somehow. Someone added a 0 somewhere or something happened.
Maybe.
You lose $25 billion and someone kills you usually.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a huge amount of cash, man. So
yeah.
All righty. Anything else before we sign off here?
Peace all.
All right. From the Legacy420.com news desk, that's a Pace News report for today. Thanks to our buds at the Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, Limestone City Hydroponics.ca, Legacy420.com, and At-Eze.ca. In closing, we'd like to say thanks for watching and tuning in. And don't forget to educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20 is so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partners 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420 enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyndonega Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.